I will give the floor to Dr. Nacho Alamillo to present his positions and ideas.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for the invitation. It is a pleasure and honor, and I'm really loved of the proposal. Although I see many potential problems that I want to stress. Many things have already been said, but I want to stress some specific points. First of all, there is always a kind of mixture when we talk about the identity, because it is depending on the people pronouncing identity, it means a thing or another thing. In fact, it has been described before. In the standardization world, we talk about foundational identities when we are thinking more in legal identities, so name, surname, which is, of course, a public potestas of the state, is a public good even. You can see the UN Sustainable Development Goal of providing all humans with a legal identity, because there are more than 1 billion people with no identity at all in this planet. So in this sense, when I look at the ideas, I can see a connection with foundational identity, but it has, as it has been correctly pointed out, this regulation is not about legal identity. Legal identity is, in my opinion, something for which the European Union has no competence at all. So that means that this digital identity thing is built upon legal identity or upon any other type of digital identity. So this is something that you can see in the regulation. It has two different parts. The part regarding wallets is public law. The part regarding everything else, including the other identities, which we call contextual identities, is private law somehow, because we have privatized this. So this is important to keep in mind, because we still have a lot of public authorities, issuing certifying acts that maybe will be requested to become service providers, which is something interesting in terms of privatization of public services. And this is very important from the perspective of public law. So you need to differentiate between foundational identity versus identity. And in fact, contextual identity is the rest of our identity data. For instance, the fact that I am a lawyer, or the fact that I hold a degree or whatever, this is something which is contextual. It is not my foundational identity, it's something which is related to me. So my personal identification data, which is the most closely definition we have in the EIDA regulation, by the way, to what a foundational identity would be, is clearly different, and it is a big business. And in fact, we have created a world which is driven by surveillance capitalism. And in fact, the new evolution of identity systems, of user control or user-centric or self-sovereign identity systems, are precisely dealing with the problem of surveillance capitalism in the United States, where you know that they are creating this concept of consumer privacy, which is completely different from our concept of in the GDPR. And we are reacting in front of that. So instead of having our life, our digital life, with all the attributes we generate, all the identity contextual attributes we generate in our digital life, in a provider's big database in form of a graph, which is then monetized, which is, by the way, what all social network providers do, and now all platform providers do, we want to give back the control of this data to the user. So when you think about identity, you need to understand that what we really want to achieve is the decentralization of identity, and particularly the decentralization of the contextual identities, meaning that instead of having my graph of personal data on Facebook, I have my graph of personal data on a device under my control. This is the essence of what is called self-sovereign identity. Of course, there are a set of principles, because SSI, self-sovereign identity, is a philosophical movement somehow, that should be fulfilled by any solution. And this is really, really in the light of the proposed regulation, because in my view, the proposed regulation is not really addressing properly all these requirements, all these principles. So to start with, an SSI system should ensure my right to exist on the internet, even if I am not registered by anyone. This is in fact the most important property, to exist. And this is why SSI was even birthed in the world of blockchains. Because blockchains are decentralized distributed registries that would allow me to create my identifier, my user account, which normally is an email address, without depending on anyone. And that means anyone, even a state. So in this sense, pure SSI is a nice figure, because it will allow me to exist and then to be registered. So first to exist and then to be identified and be given name, surname, an ID number credential, or to be given my low degree credential under my control. This is the purest approach for SSI. Of course, there are other things: control, selective disclosure, the ability to delete data, and the ability to persist and to port the data when I want to have the data under my control as well. So in this sense, the eIDAS approach is nice because it has a lot of these properties, but it does not support all the properties. For instance, the existence property, the existence philosophical principle of SSI is not covered by the regulation. On the contrary, the regulation has created something which is good. I mean, I'm not against it, which is a kind of eIDAS SSI, state-based SSI. So the idea is that I have first my foundational identity, which is the case of Spain, my national ID card, and then with this I can create a voluntary derived identity, which is called personal identification data, under the control of the state, who provides me with a wallet. And with this wallet, I have my first digital identity, something for which we don't have a definition, it has been correctly said, and then I can get other identities, other identity data in form of credentials. So as it was shown this very week in the FC Demo Day, I will be able to use my wallet, which has been derived from my national ID card, to request a diploma credential and to show this to third parties. And this is nice because it considers foundational identity as the basis of the system, but of course it puts all the power on the hands of the member states. And I am not necessarily against this, because an SSI anchored in public authority will provide higher level of assurance. So at the end of the day, a wallet is an application which is in a mobile phone, and someone should ensure me that this is working properly. That's already been said before. But of course, because the wallet is provided by the member state, and the member state can decide any strategy to provide the wallet, my real possibility of exist on the internet only depends on a member state. And I'm deeply worried about the possibility of member states using administrative measures to censorship users. This is something that could happen. Probably I would like to see in the regulation the adoption of strict measures to protect the citizens. For instance, what about requiring strict judicial control to cancel a wallet? Is a wallet revocable? Yes. I mean, it is, of course. Yeah. This type of wallet is revocable. But there are other things. If we require all relying parties to be identified and to define what they intend to do with the wallet, if we create a super big registry of anyone using our wallet with the purposes, aren't we creating the most powerful surveillance infrastructure ever in the European Union? There are people thinking so. And there are people saying that we should not allow this. And probably they are right in some sense. When I show my national ID card, the Spanish police doesn't know who I'm talking to. They don't know who are seeing my national ID card. And that's fine. Otherwise, I don't have any privacy at all. So depending on the technological approach, we could create a state surveillance model. And this is highly undesirable. And ironically, we are being criticized by this in other countries. I'm saying this in ISO, and our Chinese colleagues are starting to say, we are going to learn many things from you. This is a small joke, but it is not that small joke, because at the end of the day, it is true that if we do not implement this properly, because properly implemented, it is very good, it could generate a lot of problems. But, how do we solve this? Well, probably we could prohibit centralized wallet provision. This is one possibility. So what about if instead of allowing member states to provide and to select any strategy, we put controls? Or what happens if, why do not, for instance, impose other additional controls? For instance, allowing private companies to sell wallets, competing among them, instead of reserving this activity into the state. There are a lot of examples in the European Union where we have private companies acting on behalf of states, competing among them, and this could be one case. So distributed and decentralized wallet management could solve many problems. I'm not saying that we should privatize this. I'm saying that it should work under this control. And finally, we have, just a minute, please. We have some problems with competition law. Why are you talking about competition law? because you know that wallets are free to use by citizens, but we can charge to relying parties for the use of wallets. If we do that, we can create big competition tensions, specifically if member states decide to have appointed and preferred providers, then we impose obligations to relying parties. So this is a set of potential risks that we could avoid by putting more decentralization and, for instance, by adopting models such as EVSI. EVSI is based on blockchains, is based on distribution. I'm not saying that this is the best solution from a technological perspective, but it solves a lot of issues. Of course, the IDAS should be modified, at least at the proposal level, to adopt this approach. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you very much. It was very interesting, and the distinction between private and public law, of course. And maybe we could enter now our question.